Welcome to The Difference. Today we continue our conversation with Nate Brock as he goes deeper into his experience of creativity and songwriting and so many other things. Stay tuned.
You are listening to The Difference, a presentation from The Hour, a 54-year ministry. Steve, first we started on radio, then went to television, then we went streaming online. So at Our Stream, you can watch our programming from all those years. So it's at thehour.org. And now, here we are. Steve, I think we're just going to jump right in. Nate, thank you for being back. Uh, you know, we started this conversation last week, so to fill people in, if you didn't see last week's program, you need to go back and check it because it's an inspiring story about you and JT and Micah and the band, the violin player.
Miata.
Yes, I'm horrible with names. Sorry, but the story of you guys coming together, Micah learning to play bass to be able to be on this project, and just the creativity that is found in the Broken Halos. So you have formed this group. You guys have done albums. You're doing videos, and we shared some of that last week. We're going to share maybe a couple more things this week in between some of this conversation. So, Steve, I know you're inspired as I am with seeing a group of young people not just saying, well, hey, I want to be in a band or something. They're doing it.
Well, not just doing it, but what I love is this kind of unbridled sense of if we can't do it, let's figure out how to do it so we can create what we need to do. That's when I watch Anthony, it's just like, well, we'll figure this out. We'll create something if it's not created, which, so many people live these constrained lives where they're within these little bitty boxes and boundaries that they build because they want to so tightly control it. And there's something to be said with this. Not in a bad, this reckless abandon, fearlessness that says, hey, let's run towards what we've envisioned and figure out how we're going to make it a reality. And in your songs, in your anime, which I want to talk about a little bit later, your illustrations and animations, talk a little bit about that kind of terrifyingly exhilarating living into your visions.
I think it's a battle, um, because you're coming up to the future, and saying like, I want this thing to exist. I I personally can't figure out everything about my creation until it's done. So, I mean, even in the creating of songs and stories and art, there's this fear of like, I don't know everything about this. And, with some of the things now that I'm doing, I have a deadline, this has to be here. So, what is this going to look like at the end? I don't know yet, but I'm going to keep going for it. Um, I think, I think it's good though, because without that in my life, I wouldn't have many. I just felt like I needed to challenge myself to go over what I could do. Like I could just do school and work and call it a day, but there's just this nagging that this world that's just happened to me over the last 10 years needs to exist and needs to be shown to people. And so my first thought when I'm creating is the listener. Who's the person who is just trying to get away from their parents yelling or their breakup or their just whatever, like their anxiety or just feeling depressed? Who's the person who's going on to Spotify and putting their headphones in? What are they feeling? Like my first thought is, what's the like first feeling in their earbuds that they're gonna get. So that's where a lot of these songs start, is if this person goes into an album that I've made, where does that take them? Does that help them? Do they learn something? Do they relate to it? And how does it like feel physically to them? Does it feel good to be a part of that? Um, and anyway, so there, yeah, for me, there's a lot of fear of that because that's a really monumental thing, and there's a lot of
Well,
fear of
and
failure.
and I think that that goes right where I was kind of looking at when you have something this organic that is growing in you and out of you, that your questions about who's listening are born out of your own desire to hear things that affected you, and just how beautifully organic that is, that as those seeds were planted in you, now they're bearing a kind of a form of that fruit, but it's different. It's coming out of you and being expressed through your life experience. And that's what's so cool to me in my preaching. It's so much of it is I'm a storyteller, but I'm telling stories that have formed and shaped me,
hmm
uh, because I know they made a difference. And I know that not everybody's going to be touched by that, but there are some who will hear. And not only because of what I've said or done, but because of the Holy Spirit and the whole dynamic of the kingdom of God, that seed will find a place.
And I think you could probably relate to like you don't always know how God will use a story. And I mean, starting the Broken Halos, I started this in 2020, and my first thought was, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to run out of things to talk about." But then I realized that as I kept walking with God, he would show me more things about himself or about the world. And so really what I'm seeking to do is just categorize those things into um, aesthetic experiences for people to know about. Um, and I think the biggest fear is like no one would ever know it's there. But that's not my job, right? Like I think the whole process of storytelling and songwriting is to realize like my job is to work hard for what God's opened the door for, what he's put in front of me, what he's calling me, and just trust him that that's the reward.
I mean, the whole parable of the seed and the sower sows,
Yeah.
the soil it falls on is not, you know,
It's
they
not a
can't
choice.
control
Yeah.
that.
Well,
And
and Jesus is the one who grows
exactly,
people, right? And so he's
and
just
the Holy Spirit
yeah.
involved
exactly.
in its distribution. That's downstream of creation.
Yeah.
Creation is about, uh, we can make the greatest movie in the world or TV shows or something. Distribution is all downstream of that, but there's always going to be the need for that content, for
Hmm.
that good news, for that
Yeah.
story, and that's what. And yes, we need the distributors, we need the people, we need the Holy Spirit, we need the that force that gets the message out there, the broadcast. We need all of that, but you're a creative, and that's my hope for you is that you will focus on as much of that as you can, and that God will send people alongside of you to help the distribution of that, because you can't do everything,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things we're trying to figure out at the Institute for Southern Storytelling, and getting our things out through YouTube in different areas so that people can experience them, and that they will be there for for our archives, for everything from here on in. And I think, but for you, it's that creative spark and it's that creation experience of we're taking and making something beautiful. And then, come what may, if no one ever saw the Sistine ceiling, that doesn't take away from what that is, but it's a wonderful thing that it is distributed and people do see it. So I just champion what you are doing. Y'all are getting in there and y'all are making music. You're doing things. You're creating art. Some of that other distribution is going to change anyway, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's going to be radio, and then
Let's
it's going
see.
to be TV, and then it's
50
going to be
years ago.
YouTube
yeah.
Shorts.
yeah. I mean, and all of that changes in attention spans and tastes and all of that. If you're interested in creating good quality art and beauty and something meaningful for the world, there will always be a market, a consumption of that.
Especially, I mean, one of the things as I listen to you, I love your whole idea of creating in the sense that you know it's dialogical. This is not a monologue. You're not just going out there singing to hear yourself sing. You're singing to help people hear a message or a gift that you've been given and to hear in a way that it will affect them.
Well, and like, there's so many things God's called me to in my life that have been just so. I mean, coming to MC, going to get in the watercolor class with my girlfriend, but like, you just you need voices in your head that are supporting listening to
Exactly.
God, right? And I don't know. I look on my growing up all through high school, I would look at what a lot of my peers were listening to or what was available and being shown to me on Spotify to listen to, and it was stuff that would take me away from finding out the calling on my life, you know? And I just think if you're creating this ecosystem in your soul,
Right.
what are you putting into it? Are we just putting like sewage into it? And yeah, so the greatest artists for me think about that dialogical piece of they're very aware of how they want someone to be impacted by what they're doing. And I connect to that because I don't know, that points me back to God of like, he's aware, he's dialogical. You know, the Lord's I think a lot of people don't know that
No.
at my age.
No, and I think a lot of times in faith we want to sterilize the faith. A lot of people who are very dogmatic and everything, they want to clean it up. And even the title of your album, Broken Halos, this sense that it's a broken world, there's needs, it's dirty. If you read scripture, it's a lot
They
of the
break in the
stories in
first
there
3 chapters,
exactly.
right? Like,
Well, I mean,
it's-
they come in broken.
Yeah.
They come in hot. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And people, if they look at a faith that's been so cleaned up that they can't identify with that, they have no point of contact, then it becomes very off-putting. But when you hear somebody come in and just like David, just constantly, I've sinned. I don't want, but I love you, God. I'm trying to figure this out. Help me. The Psalms are so beautiful because they're so authentic and so real.
Well, and he's the one after God's own heart
Exactly.
and not the squeaky clean Pharisee, right? And I think for my generation, and I mean, you could limit it to the music world, but also just the art world in general. I mean, I just think Christians should be leading the arts
Exactly.
in our society in the West. Like, we should be the champions of it. It should be pointing to God. Like, I think you glorify God as a Christian who is an artist by making the best art you possibly can. And I've struggled with that. What you're saying about the cleanly Christianity,
Yeah.
right? Like the cleanliness of it, where I'm like, I
Right.
just do not. That's not how I live at all. Like, not how I live. Like, I'm just trying to live like
Right.
crazy, but like that's not encouraging to me. It's actually discouraging. And I went to a lot of those churches where it was like that. And it's like no one has any problems. No one's this or that or this. Everyone has problems. But if you're gate kept from them, it's isolating.
Or if you can't talk about
Or
it.
if you can't talk about them.
Well,
yeah.
and the other thing is that many times in those organizations there is a homogenization, kind of an alignment that has to happen that stifles creativity. If you don't dress like us, look like us, talk like us, know what we know, then you're not it. And I think that that's one of the glorious gifts Jesus gave us was he wasn't it. He
Yeah.
wasn't the regular rabbi. He wasn't saying the things that said, "Be like me." Follow. It was. This is the love of God. This is how we were made. It's not easy. Yes, Zacchaeus is a tax collector, but he's a child of God, and that's messy. And he walked right into that.
And one of the things as I'm thinking more of like how do I want my future home to feel and be is like I don't know, Jesus was so like tangibly human.
Mhm.
Not in sin, but in that he would cook fish or I don't know if he was a carpenter or a stonemason, but he worked with his hands, like he was working with things from the earth. And I think sometimes I look at our mainstream Christian culture where it's so produced and so everyone's got their hair a certain way. You've got this kind of brand of clothing where I'm like, you couldn't go in the woods in that,
No,
you know?
exactly.
And I think there's something about, for me as an artist, where I really want people to want to go in the woods after they listen to
Yeah,
a song, like go be in the world. Because that's how people are too. They're,
right.
if you can't get in the mud spiritually, there's just this big disconnect, I think, for how we should be as believers.
Exactly.
Well, and Steve, one of the things that I was thinking about with what you guys were talking, Nate, you said something that is, I think, crucial is the idea of if you're a Christian doing something, you're supposed to do it to they'll they'll know your your good works are not always just about good work, but they know a quality about you because you are, if you're going to be a lumberjack, you're the best lumberjack you
Hmm.
can be in God's name. You don't have to be a pastor for lumberjacks. You can but you're doing something. So if you're an artist, I've known different artists at different times, and this is a sensitive thing, but here I'm going to put a scripture after my name, or I'm going to talk about, oh, God gave. I remember J.D. Sumner one time, bass singer with the Stamps and sang with Elvis and all, and he said a woman came up to him one time and said, God gave me this song for you. And she sang it to him, and he said, honey, God didn't give you that song. He would have given you a better one. And don't blame that on God, is what I think
Yeah.
he said. And sometimes I'll see people doing art in God's name or something, and
Yeah.
you don't do bad art and then try to give it meaning by saying, well, here's this Christian story with it. Learn how to do really, really good art, and then that art tells the story by itself. You know what I mean? And that's what encourages me with you, with wanting to do a level of quality that speaks for itself and has a respect and but people see that it is good, not because you're saying, hey, this is good because I'm using God talk. Do something beautiful and good, and it honors God because the motives you have behind it. And then the story rings true in a better way.
Well, and I think like if we're talking about it dialogically too, it's a relationship
Mhm.
between anyone experiencing the art and the artist. And like I can just smell it so fast on somebody when they're trying to sell me, but they don't really believe in it. And I don't think
No,
God ever does that with
and
anything.
I think that's, as you were talking, it just hit me. That's so transactional. It's not relational.
Yeah.
It's transactional. I'm going to sell you some entertainment. I'm going to make myself some money. And when you're creating out of your soul, when you're creating out of your faith, that comes. It's not like you don't say, I got to pay my bills or I need to make some money,
Hmm.
but it's like I love doing this. I want to do it, as you said, as well as I can, and yet at the same time, not because one of the first things that Anthony taught me as we were talking, we were talking about his art, and he was just like saying every artist has to reach a point on a painting where you say, "I'm through." Where if you keep dabbling with it, you're going to ruin it, or you keep doing things. So it's this kind of liberating freedom of giving your best effort and then going into the next thing
Hmm.
and not being so
Yeah.
obsessed with will people buy this or will they do it. No, I'm through here. I'm writing the next song.
And I think it really, that moment for me comes down to the listener again. Because I mean, with production, as I'm sure both of you know, or writing or anything, it's like you can just tweak it to death.
Hmm.
But I think keeping that anchor of like, what's our guiding light here? Well, the guiding light is the listener experience and the, like, what do they get out of it? And so as soon as that's achieved, I think I think that's when I can call it like it's done,
Yeah.
right? And I think we were talking about Genesis earlier. I'm learning so much of how God rests after his creation. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He said we rest, the Sabbath is there so that we rest to work. We don't work to rest, we rest to work. And I think that's a really encouraging thing to
And it's the
think about.
inversion of how our culture treats it. We're working for the weekend.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
whole sense of, you know, and for me, what I find is if I ever give myself the luxury of true Sabbath, the regeneration and the restoration and the energy that comes from that just makes me want to do more because I'm ready and I'm not burned out or fried or, just pushed to the limits.
yeah. And I know for myself when I do that, it never ends well for me, you know. And I think too, like, what are the greatest commandments? You know, love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. I'm saying that right, yeah.
Yeah.
And with with art, it's a relationship, and it's like you think a lot about how am I loving people in doing this? Am I loving people in doing this, or am I just trying to get something for my ego as like I'm this artist guy, right? And like so the rest component in that, especially when you're working with other creatives, and I think you guys at the Institute have done a great job with this of the environment. Like you come in, there's food. Okay, we're going to take a break here. We're not going to just work you down to the bone. It's like, I don't know. You learn a lot of practical, hey, I'm going to pray for my bandmates. What's the environment when they show up?
Hmm.
Like, is this conversation going to go clear or is this going to confuse them? Like, I think as a Christian creative, you want to consider how am I loving the people around me who are working on this, but then also how am I loving the consumer or the person who experiences it at the end. Yeah.
Well, it's not being, so many times creatively, people become utilitarian in the sense that they use people just like a camera or a tool
Yeah.
rather than a part of an experience you're sharing together and a
Right.
relationship you're having.
And with that, there is a generosity component that I think if you are a believer, if you are what you say you are, that has to show with. I grew up and we had no money and I had to do all these weddings and all these things myself, and film is a collaborative medium, and
Yeah.
I've had to really learn and push finding the importance of including other people, not because, oh, let me get this person because they can do this better than me, because a lot of times there are people that can do all these things better than me. Sometimes they're not, but I might want to include somebody because of being generous and saying, I want them to experience this. And you talk a lot about the listener and thinking about the listener, but you also drew people together to be part of that experience, and you draw people together to be included in this thing happening. And I think that might be the biggest difference between what a Christian artist can and should be
Mm.
than someone else. And we've been on film sets recently, we've been on things, and a lot of times I learn the way I don't want to do something as much
Mm.
Exactly.
as I want to do the way I've learned to do something I want to do, because of including people and saying, I don't want this person to have that feeling.
Yeah.
And I am not perfect, and I lose my temper, and the heat of things, or there's a pressure to get things done, and there are moments that then I wind up not being proud of uh, in the heat of the moment. And we have a lot of things going on. We have a lot of, and then we have television commitments, and we have these public appearances. I mean, we have a lot of things swirling. So that even good stress is stress, and that wears you down. But the finding the rest,
Mhm.
finding others to help come along and participate because it's good for them, but it's good for us and it's good for the kingdom because we're not meant to be alone.
Hmm.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing that you're
And
doing.
part of the accountability when you build your band, when we work together, is having people who love you enough to say, "Hey, you look worn out. You
Hmm.
need to rest. You need to take care of yourself. You need to pay attention to what's going on inside of you." And for me, as I think about us doing this and having all the conversations we've had, one of the common things with almost everybody that's doing good is that it's they can't not do it. They can't be satisfied with less than being fully present in what they're called to. And I think that's where we both
Regardless of money.
exactly. It's not about
Which is
money.
the
It's
tough
just
part,
like
right?
when I retired, one of the aches that I had is I missed my preaching. I missed the
Yeah.
interaction. I
Yeah.
missed my congregation. And so as we began to do this and I began to have conversations, began to work with my son at the farmers market, I found a new congregation. I found a new way for me to kind of tell my stories and
Yeah.
share the things that I'd done there, but I couldn't not do it.
Which I think is one of the things I'm really grateful for the Institute for is it's showing me what can I keep going on in my life without doing and what can I not.
Yeah.
And you really don't find that out till you try it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with, I mean, we mentioned fear of failure earlier. It's, learning what not to do
Yeah.
is is learning.
Huge.
It is.
And
It
and so
is.
I can think a lot of times that some of my most poignant moments of awakening have been those moments where I'm like, this is not what I want. And yet that tattooed itself on my memory and my thoughts. And so it's now helped me be better.
Hmm.
Well, Nate, to wrap up here. All right, sometimes we ask questions about with someone on the with fewer days ahead of them than they have behind them, we'll ask questions about,
Wait.
what do you want to do with the time you have left, or how do you want to be remembered? Sometimes we have those legacy questions
Right.
for older people that we interview. I don't want you because you don't have to see down the road. You don't have to say, all right, this is what I want to be and like, that's not what I'm asking. I want to ask, what is it that you want next? What do you are you praying for next as we wrap this up, and then we're going to play another song on the way out here. But what is it that you're longing for next
Like as a creative or just in
as
any
a
way?
person? Because I don't see any difference.
Yeah. That's a really good question. Um, I think I want to go into a different gear. I'm We're almost done with a really big project. I've got an animation to wrap up and a lot of that. And I think I I've been feeling a pull lately to shift the gears once everything's done, and I'm not sure what that'll look like. Um, but I think it goes back to that rest to work. I think there's more things to create. Um, but I've been thinking a lot about my upcoming semester and what that needs to look like for me creatively. And I think a big part of it is going to be um, shifting away from maybe like as much production as I've been doing and
Hmm.
more into other areas of my life so that I can then come back in a healthy way.
I think about the 23rd Psalm. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. That whole sense of feeding, input.
Hmm.
We talk about this on the podcast, some of our best friends are in the pages of a book
Hmm.
where we read and we learn and we grow, but that's a passive kind of thing of since I'm not doing anything, I'm consuming. When Jesus finished preaching and would feed the crowds, it was out of his compassion to say they're hungry. They have heard a lot. They've had a long day. Let's feed them, and he wants that for us. And so I
And
love
he even
the
got
idea.
in the boat and went off by himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to graze, because you can't always just be giving milk. You
Yeah.
you have to go graze too.
Yeah.
And you can tell in an artist's career or a musician's career when they reach that point where it's more regurgitation than it is creation.
That's something I can really pick up on, and I don't want to. I like, it's like a garden. You really have to take. One thing I think to myself is like, you can save time or you can make art, and I think there's just that period of you're writing about life, and you need to live your life.
Right.
And you need to have that life going on and those relationships.
That's the palette that you get the
Yeah.
words, the music from.
Nothing's gonna come out if it's just on E, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that's what's next for me, and to give into other people's projects. Like, I've been really blessed to have so much time to work on my own creations that I want to see in the world, but I really want to help with other people too. And so, like, there's some stuff we've talked about. I'm working for another podcast, so it might be a break from.
No, wait, I'm sorry. I thought you knew this was exclusive.
Yeah.
You can never
So
do
your
anything on
contract
another
actually
podcast
says
ever.
these are not going to air now. I breached it.
Oh, they're not going to air
Yeah.
anyway. No. Hey, Nate, what's your favorite song from your album?
I think it would be "Worship at Midnight" or "The Road." The Road. We'll
I
say
think The Road.
The
too.
Road is.
You know.
I love The Road.
What better way to?
So introduce The Road as we end this episode of The Difference.
The Road is a song about searching for the things that really matter in life. I've been on a lot of different trips throughout the states, throughout the world, and one of the things you really realize when you go on those journeys is the really, really important things to you. And sometimes you got to go on those journeys to find out what those are, and that's what The Road's about. So, thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you for being on this road with us. And thank you all for listening. And as always, hey, remember, live loved.
This song went from being like really chill acoustic to what it is now, and I love it. And it's called The Road. It's a single I put out around Thanksgiving. And I've had the blessing to get to travel to a couple different countries in my life and a lot of different states. But I think something I've realized every time I've been out of the country or out of the state is it's like it makes me like Mississippi more. Before I went anywhere, I was like, man, I want to go to some other place. But now, the more I see like why I was born in Mississippi, and the more I go into the world, the more I'm thankful to come back here and really have it be my home state. And writing a lot more music and things like that, I've really been a lot more connected with the roots of that here, and just really proud to call Mississippi my home state. So this is The Road. We might travel, but I always want to come back here. Looking for something for my soul. Maybe I'll find it on the road. I'm looking for something no one could ever hold. Maybe I'll find it on the road. For leaves and picture frames, the world begs me to stay, but I'm longing for the road. find them on the road. I'm looking for somebody to give me hope. Maybe I'll find him on the road. 4 leaves and picture frames, the world begs me to stay, but I'm longing for the road. 4 ties and blinker lights, state lines and caffeine nights. Are you ready? I'm ready for the road. I'm looking for the man I used to be. Maybe I'll find him on the road. And if you get sad when you think of me, just come meet me on the road. 4 leaves and picture